Western Conference Finals, Dallas Mavericks win last night by a final score of 116 to 107 to take a commanding 3-games-to-none lead. And as we know in NBA history, no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. The Heat came close last year, the Celtics came close last year, but the Heat were able to snuff them out in Game 7 in Boston. So this series is over. That goes without saying. But Dallas doing what they've done in this year's playoffs has surprised a lot of people. Like, man, the West is stacked, at least relative to the East. The East is about as weak. This year's Eastern Conference is about one of the weakest conferences, divisions, whatever the case may be, that I've ever seen in sports in my life. It's bad. I'll talk about the Celtics in about 10 to 12 minutes. But out West, oh my God. Defending champion Nuggets, this young, up-and-coming Oklahoma City team, the Timberwolves, who we're seeing doing their thing in this year's postseason, the Phoenix Suns, hey, listen, it is Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, the Lakers with LeBron and AD, the Mavericks, and the Clippers if Kawhi's healthy, and up and down the board. Wait, Dallas is going to make the finals out of this loaded field? I mean, it's not like stunning, but to some, it's, man, I didn't see that coming. Listen, full disclosure, before the year started, this is a bad pick, but I picked the Warriors to win the finals. I didn't back off that pick entirely because I believe in pick integrity. When you make your pick, gosh darn it, you stay with that pick. Otherwise, you lose credibility, in my mind. But I backed away. I shouldn't say backed away. I said toward the end of the season, they're darn sure not the favorites. I'm going to stick with my pick because that's my pick and that's my team. But I was leaning Denver Nuggets. But I said coming into this year's playoffs, if the Denver Nuggets do not win the Western Conference, it will be because the Dallas Mavericks did. Now, I thought the Mavericks could potentially beat Denver in the Western Conference Finals, given how the bracket had shaken itself out. And like, Bryson, why would you make a claim like that? By the way, I said before the playoffs, I did my top 10 teams in the NBA. I had Denver 1, Boston 2, Dallas 3rd. Turns out I might have actually underrated Dallas because they're going to be literally one of the last 2 teams left. So by definition, they're higher than 3. It's because the reason I believe in the Dallas Mavericks, who I did not believe in coming into this season. I certainly didn't believe in them after the Kyrie Irving trade. More on Kyrie in just a second, because I've been very critical of him throughout the course of his career. I'm not going to run from that now or act like I didn't make those comments. But Dallas over the last 35 games, what the Dallas Mavericks have done is boast the number 1 opponent points per game. Boast the number 1 opponent field goal percentage, basically the lowest percentage shot against any defense in the NBA over the last 35 games. The regular season was caused by the Dallas Mavericks. They improved their defense. The Gafford trade, PJ Washington, Luka. I talked about this the first round against the Clippers. Luka was putting the clamps on Paul George, on Kawhi Leonard, on Kyrie Irving, on James Harden. Luka's committed more to the defensive end. Kyrie, in spurts, has committed to the defensive end. Gafford gives him an interior presence. You have Washington, who's a long, rangy defender, can knock down the corner threes like a longer, younger PJ Tucker to a certain degree. Jason Kidd, who I was skeptical of before he took the Dallas job, after year 1, I'm like, I'm sold. That's the guy. Mid-season trades, committing more to the defensive end, making the adjustments under Jason Kidd is why the Dallas Mavericks are in the position that they're in. For the record, speaking of record, in the last 35 games leading up to the playoffs, Dallas had the second best record to the team they're about to face the finals, the Boston Celtics. They've been doing this. Oh, again, I'm not a big believer in tiny sample sizes as being what defines you. Right? Like, you know, I don't like if the Clippers, remember when the Clippers went on that nice little run in December, January, didn't buy into it. A, because of previous history. B, it's too small of a sample size. Darn near half the season, that's a pretty big sample size. By the way, at the end of the season is where the Dallas Mavericks, after making those trades and after sort of adjusting their offensive philosophy, as I've talked about in this show, with Luka Doncic and the Mavericks being 10-0 when Luka's usage rate is 30% or below, that's why they're here. And that's why when you have an offense that does cater more to the others around Luka, Luka's still going to get his. He's one of the 3 best players in basketball, and I don't think that's deniable. But when you have an offense that caters more to everybody else with Luka as the driver of the engine, you also get the best out of Kyrie Irving, who we've all known. When Kyrie's number 2, he's one of the clutchest players in the NBA. And we could show you some clutch stats from last night as well as from the series, okay? So, 4th quarter last night, and that game was in the balance, man. Like, that was Minnesota. Ant Edwards dunks on the entire city of Dallas in the third quarter. Ant has 2 amazing playoff dunks, by the way. It's crazy. And the Timberwolves are making this 15-3 run, and we're like, hey, Minnesota may steal this game, and now we got a series. And what do Luka and Kyrie Irving do? Let's put up the graphic right here. Luka, Kyrie Irving scored 21 points in the fourth quarter last night. 21 by 2 guys. The Minnesota Timberwolves scored 20. Luka and Kyrie outscore the Timberwolves in the fourth quarter by themselves. Throughout the course of the series, let's show what Luka and Kyrie have done in the fourth quarter. They've averaged 19 points per game. Look at the shooting splits. 56% for the field. Good Lord Almighty. 69% from 3. Luka and Kyrie combined in the fourth quarter of the conference finals. 12 assists and only 4 turnovers. They've been clutch. They've hit every big shot. They've gotten other guys involved. They're not turning the basketball over. And the efficiency's off the freaking charts. So, am I surprised it's 3-0? A little, because I picked Dallas in 6 coming in this thing. But am I surprised that Luka's been the best player in the series with respect to Ant Edwards, and that Kyrie's outperformed Cat? That doesn't surprise me at all. Am I surprised that Jason Kidd has significantly outcoached Chris Finch in the series, who he's gotten better this year, but I've always been a little skeptical of Chris Finch dating back to that 2022 playoff run where they blew a bunch of fourth quarter leads to the Grizzlies. This is what the Mavericks have done. I did want to address, because we know Luka's great. Like, if you don't think Luka Doncic is a great player, and at this point in time, one of the 3 best players of the basketball, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Kyrie Irving, though, is a more of a mixed bag. And boy, does he have a bag. We've always known that. With Kyrie, because I'm seeing not revisionist history, but I think an incorrect way of viewing how the last, what are we going to give it, 5 or 6 years went for Kyrie, and compared to how this year's going, which couldn't be going better for Kyrie Irving, is that, hey, now the media is giving Kyrie Irving his props. He's always been great. He's just gone to a situation that suits him. That's partly true because now, for the first time since Cleveland, LeBron James, and Kyrie, to his credit, apologized years ago to LeBron for leaving him, being like, hey, this leading a team thing ain't as easy as you made it look in Cleveland, LeBron. So they made up. Yes, he has a reliable number 1 star, the clear face of the franchise, Luka Doncic, the way LeBron was in Cleveland, as opposed to KD, who, while he's great, I think will always be viewed as great, but like a Moses Malone sort of, right? Historically. Kyrie has that, but let's be intellectually honest here. Kyrie's matured. Matter of fact, Kyrie Irving's matured a lot. Not even just the vaccine controversy in Brooklyn, because Kyrie wasn't the first guy to come out against the vaccine, whatever. He was the guy who a year and a half ago promoted the anti-Semitic documentary. We know there were some issues he had with teammates in the past. There were a lot of problems in Brooklyn. The Boston Celtics guys could not stand him when it comes to his leadership, and he had some bad playoff runs. Those things all happen. But what has also happened is that Kyrie, who I've never viewed Kyrie Irving as a bad human being. I don't think most people have viewed him as that. What he has been, though, is a guy maybe trying to find himself, but to a certain degree at the detriment of the Dallas Mavericks, or not the Dallas Mavericks, or to the Brooklyn Nets, and certainly to the Boston Celtics, who he very well is going to face in about a week and a half. It's the fact that this man, who's been in the NBA, this is his 13th year in the NBA, has matured, has grown to the point now where the Mavericks are looking to him to be Luka's great. Not to say Luka isn't a great leader. Kyrie's kind of the leader of that team because he's been on a lot of playoff runs. He's won a championship. He hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history against my Warriors. Don't remind me. He's been to finals. He's been to conference. He's been there and he's done that more than anybody in that Dallas Mavericks squad. They look to him for leadership. They didn't do that in Brooklyn. They didn't. They didn't do that in Boston. And when they did, it usually went poorly. And so props to Kyrie Irving for maturing, for understanding what his role. Kyrie Irving understood. When I'm the number 2 to a more skilled and certainly a better player above me, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Cleveland, we can beat anybody. And all of a sudden, the Dallas Mavericks 5 wins away from an NBA title, and Kyrie's 5 wins away from a second ring. So I think we don't need to do a revisionist history on Kyrie Irving, and we also don't need to rewrite history on Kyrie Irving. Those things in the past happened, but what has also happened is a maturity, is a growth by a very smart guy. I've never questioned Kyrie Irving's intellect or intelligence by any stretch of the imagination. He's grown. He's gotten better, and he's now with the franchise. He's with the number 2 guy that suits his greatest skills. So listen, Dallas being up 3 in this series is somewhat surprising. I thought Dallas would win the series in 6, but listen, Minnesota led in the fourth quarter of all 3 games. That guy number 77 in Luka Doncic, and that guy number 11. I think is he still number 11? I can't believe I didn't notice that. But that guy wearing number 11 in Dallas as well has been absolutely phenomenal, along with Luka Doncic. So the Mavericks lead 3-0, and they are going to the finals. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.